She stood in the doorway like a small shadow deciding whether to become a voice. The afternoon sunlight spilled across the office, warm and golden, but it didn't reach the space between them. Carter Williams' fingers hovered over the keyboard, the soft clatter dying mid-word. He turned, slow, as if the air itself had thickened. "There's a camera in your office." The girl whispered, each word careful and whole. Behind the painting, the one Miss Vanessa brought. The room seemed to tilt. Carter glanced past her to the muted abstract skyline Vanessa had teased him into hanging. "You need something soft in here, babe." A rectangle of tasteful calm above the bookcase. His mouth went dry. "How do you know?" he asked. Maya didn't step farther in. She was 9 and smaller than the doorway, but something about the way she gripped the frame with her fingertips made the wood look like an anchor. "I saw it. Blink at night," she said, "and I scanned it. The signal isn't yours." Carter stood. It had been 6 months since the accident took her parents and left silence, where a child's laughter should be. In that time, Maya had moved through his house like mist, seen, not heard, present, not heavy. She learned the roots of light and shadow, the timing of footsteps, the safe corners where adults forgot to look. He had given her a room full of soft lights and books and gadgets, a therapist with a warm voice, a school that promised challenge without cruelty. He hadn't earned this. "What did you scan it with?" he asked. "Throw tight." "My tablet," she said, so softly he had to lean closer to hear. "I ran a network trace when I couldn't sleep. I logged the timestamps." He crossed the room. The painting came off its hooks with a sigh of wood and dust. Behind it, nothing but smooth drywall except for a black dot tucked against the curve of the frame, no larger than a pencil eraser, a pinhole, a lidless eye. His jaw locked. A dozen knives snapped into a new shape, the perfectly timed coffees Vanessa brought, her habit of passing behind his chair, the way her laugh always landed just as he reached for a password field. The coincidences had not been kind. They had been choreography. He set the painting down and looked at Maya. She stood very still, a child bracing for gravity. "How long have you known?" "A week," she said. "I wanted to be sure. I didn't think you'd." She swallowed. Believe me, something inside him gave way, not with a crash, but with the quiet sound of a door unlocking. He crouched to her height, careful with the space between them, and did not reach for her. "I believe you," he said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. No smile, no relief theatrics, just a small loosening, like a knot eased halfway. He turned to his workstation and woke the security dashboard. Lines of data rose like a nervous system onto the screen. Cameras, microphones, access logs, motion, triggers. He ran a spectrum sweep of the room, then the floor, then the entire wing. Beside him, Maya set her tablet next to the keyboard, her fingers short. "Here," she murmured, bringing up her own log. "I used device discovery. 5 signals. That don't belong. See, they wake up between midnight and 4. They go quiet." On the dashboard, dots pulsed to life, one in the office, one in the living room, one in the guest bedroom, one in the den, one where no device should have survived at all. Midnight spikes, silent days, someone harvesting in the hours when the house breathed deepest. "What about motion?" Carter asked. He parsed the logs. Motion triggers in empty rooms. A ping from the guest room on Wednesday with no registered entry. A blip in the living room at 3:08 a.m. last Sunday. And one line that was wrong in a way only a system designer would notice, an event without a signature. Not unknown, not error, blank, as if a ghost had walked through his code and refused to leave footprints. Maya tapped the painting frame with a fingernail. Gentle. "It's not just a camera," she said. "It's an RF node too. See the seam? There. Hidden in the molding groove. A hair's breadth line in the faintest warmth when he held his palm close. Not Wi-Fi, leapfrogging radio, frequency hopping to avoid his crawlers. This wasn't a jealous ex or a nosy tabloid. This was professional. This was personal. Carter felt the old instincts tighten, the ones that built high-end from a basement lab, into an armor that clients trusted with the things they couldn't afford to lose. He trusted systems because systems, when built right, did not lie. People were more complicated. Love, most of all. He looked at Maya. "From now on," he said quietly, "we do this together. No secrets." Her gaze met his, steady and older than any 9-year-old should ever have to be. She nodded once, like a pack-sealed dot they moved in. Sync after that. He opened the air gap diagnostic suite. She slid her tablet cable into the secondary port with a concentration that made her mouth go small. He mirrored her logs to his screen. Timestamps aligned. The 5 unknowns pulsed in staggered bursts, then died like fireflies at dawn. He cross-referenced routine maps, Vanessa's arrivals, her departures, the night she forgot a scarf, and doubled back. Patterns clicked. Warm laughter at the door, lavender on his pillow, a gentle hand on his shoulder just as his two-factor prompt appeared, softness hiding a blade. Maya's voice came from just beside his elbow. The packets. Go out, but they don't go to your cloud, she said. They bounce. She traced the route with a fingertip on her screen out of the house, into a local relay, gone. He chased it with tools not meant for children, and found the echo and address buried behind a storage facility registration and a handful of shell. Filings so bland they were almost daring someone to look away. He didn't. The skin resolved. Downtown Austin, a room full of locked doors with names that tried hard to be boring. His console chirped. The blank entry returned, a thin line in a sea of noise, no user, no device ID, no source, a silence shaped like a signature. Carter stared at it, at the little nothing that meant everything. He felt rage rise and pass like a wave that chooses not to break. Calculation followed. He was not going to smash a nest with a hammer. He was going to salt it, trace it, make it confess the root of every stolen breath. He angled the monitor, so Maya could see, and pointed to the final hop. You found this, he said. She didn't blink. We found it. He closed the painting gently, as if the frame might cut him, and leaned it against the wall, lens facing the room like a trophy. Outside, the trees moved in a wind that hadn't been there minutes ago. Inside, the air had stilled again, but it didn't feel trapped anymore. It felt like the pause between a decision and its consequences. Carter reached for a secure handset. He hadn't touched in years and set it next to the keyboard without dialing. Not yet. He let the screen's glow wash over the two of them, man and child, framed by the same light, the same problem, the same vow, and listened to the quiet hum of systems waiting to be told what to do. The root on his monitor pulsed again. Austin. Held steady, and in the center of his own architecture, the place where every event wore a name. A second blank line appeared and then vanished, like a breath on glass. The house was quieter than it had been in months, but it was the wrong kind of quiet, like the breath someone holds before doing something they can't take back. Carter stood at the window, watching the long driveway curl through the trees. His reflection in the glass looked composed. It wasn't. Inside, the edges of his mind felt sharp, ready to cut. Behind him, the soft scrape of a chair broke the silence. Maya sat at his desk, legs swinging above the floor, her tablet propped in front of her. She had pulled her braids back into a loose knot, the kind of practical gesture that said she was here to work. Carter had seen engineers twice her age come apart under pressure. She was steady, almost unnervingly so. I've been mapping the transmissions, she said without looking up. They're not random. Whoever's running them is doing it in patterns, rotations. Each device talks at a different time, so the network never spikes all at once. How precise? He asked. She pinched the screen, zooming in to the second. It's like a watch changing shifts. Carter crossed the room, leaning over her shoulder. The pattern wasn't just professional, it was military. Frequency hopping, time bursts, rotating nodes to avoid detection. If the painting in his office was the first domino, the rest of the row stretched farther than he'd thought. Vanessa's been in the house for times in the past 2 weeks, Maya continued, and every time she's here, one of the devices goes completely silent. He frowned. Silent? Like it's listening, she said, but only to her. That detail slid under his skin like ice. She wasn't just stealing code, she was using the network for private, real-time conversations, which meant whoever was on the other end trusted her enough to speak freely. Josephine appeared in the doorway, a tray balanced on her hip. You both look like you could use something warm, she said. Setting down mugs of cocoa, she glanced at the monitor and gave a low whistle. That's more red dots than I care to see. Maya found the pattern, Carter told her. Josephine's eyes softened as she looked at the girl. Good. Patterns tell you who people really are. Carter took his mug, letting the steam coil into his face. I'm going to need a closed environment, he said, air-gapped. No outside connections. Josephine nodded toward the far wall. The cabinet. You kept the old system in there for emergencies. He unlocked it, revealing a matte black tower that still smelled faintly of ozone and solder. He built it in the early days of Hyan, before the billion-dollar contracts. Before the government clients back when paranoia was his only insurance policy. The hardware was overbuilt, the firmware custom, the intrusion detection paranoid enough to flag its own upgrades. Maya peered inside. It's beautiful. Carter smiled faintly. It's dangerous. And right now, that's exactly what we need. They set to work. He cloned her logs, layering them over his own, then fed the merged data into the old system. On the wall-mounted display, the house appeared as a blueprint threaded with pulsing veins of signal. The rogue devices glowed like embers. Here, Maya said, tapping the guest bedroom, that one's talking to a relay downtown. The screen zoomed into a grid of streets until a single dot blinked above a bland storage facility in Austin. The kind of place that didn't advertise, didn't need to. Carter tagged the location. Then, something strange, one of the embers, flared, then died. Another lit in its place. The network was shifting mid-map. They know we're looking, Maya whispered. Carter's pulse steadied instead of spiking. Good. Let's give them something worth finding. He pulled up a set of files from his archive designs for a neural mesh AI framework that didn't exist anywhere except in concept. It was convincing enough to pass a glance, rich enough to make anyone with an appetite for intellectual property lean closer. He began to weave in the poison code level tripwires that would log every machine, every operator, every location that touched it. Maya watched him work. What do we call it? He didn't look up. Butterfly sting. Her eyes brightened, catching the meaning something small and beautiful carrying enough venom to drop a predator. They stayed like that for hours, the old server purring softly, the decoy taking shape bite by bite. Outside, the light faded to blue, then black. Near midnight, one of the rogue signals spiked again. The guest bedroom. They watched as packets began to move not away from the house, but toward it. They're updating the device, Maya said. Carter stood, already moving. Stay here. He crossed the hall in silence. The only sound his bare feet on the carpet. The guest bedroom door creaked as he pushed it open. The air smelled faintly of vanilla Vanessa's perfume against the far wall. The antique armoire sat slightly askew, just enough to reveal the glint of metal near the baseboard. A small, black box, no bigger than a wallet, blinked once as if acknowledging him. Then it went dark. He crouched, pried it loose, and carried it back to the office. Maya looked up as he set it on the desk. The box was warm, its edges smooth, no markings of any kind. He slid it toward her. Let's see who's on the other end. Her fingers danced over the tablet. It's not transmitting anymore, she said. Whoever was connected pulled the plug the second you touched it. Carter leaned back, eyes narrowing. Then they know we're awake. On the wall display, the map shifted again. This time, a new dot appeared far from Austin. It pulsed. Once, twice, then locked into place. Where is that? Maya asked. He zoomed in. The streets resolved into a skyline he recognized instantly. New York, he said. And not just anywhere. Midtown, the warmth of the cocoa on his tongue, was gone now. In its place was the taste of a hunt just beginning. Rain slicked the driveway like black glass, turning the lights from the house into warped reflections. Inside, the air was tense enough to hum. Carter sat at the edge of his desk, the old server tower purring beside him, its status lights blinking like a heartbeat. Across from him, Maya was curled into the leather guest chair, knees to her chest. Her hoodie pulled up so only the determined glint in her eyes showed. They took the bait, she said, her voice a mix of excitement and something harder. Austin, lit up like a Christmas tree an hour ago. Then the signal jumped. Jumped where? Carter asked. Through 3 anonymizers, then straight into that Midtown node we traced last night. Midtown, the dot that had pulsed like it knew they were watching. Carter straightened. That's not random, that's a handoff. Before Maya could reply, Reed pushed through the door, a faint sheen of rain on his jacket. We've got movement. Miles Renner just booked a late-night flight to LaGuardia. No check bag. Vanessa's car left her condo 10 minutes ago, headed downtown. Carter's pulse slowed instead of spiking. That was the part of himself he'd learned to trust. The way danger didn't rush him, it focused him. Get the mobile unit ready, he told Reed. We're doing this tonight. The sting was set in motion with surgical precision. Carter loaded the butterfly sting decoy onto an isolated drive, encrypted so heavily that curiosity itself would leave fingerprints. Every file name, every folder path, every scrap of code was designed to feel like buried treasure. A prototype neural mesh framework. that could predict and adapt in ways the real high-end system hadn't yet achieved. It was worth billions on paper. The key was making it impossible to resist. Maya sat beside him, watching as he threaded the payload with trace beacons. That wouldn't just log access, they'd map behavior inside the thief system, documenting every keystroke and process call. She added her own flourish, a visual signature in the metadata, a subtle butterfly silhouette embedded deep in the compiled code, invisible until the exact moment it was supposed to be seen. "They'll know it's us," she said. "They already do," Carter replied. 2 hours later, the decoy sat in plain sight on Carter's office desktop, labeled just enough to make it look like an accident. He left the office door ajar, the glow of the monitor spilling into the hallway like a lure. Then he and Maya retreated to the command trailer Reed had set up in the guest house. The monitors came alive with feeds from hidden cameras and the digital nerve map of high-end systems. Rain drummed on the trailer roof in a steady rhythm, masking the faint clicks and beeps of equipment in motion. At 1:14 a.m., Vanessa appeared on the hallway feed. Her movements were casual, deliberate, heels in hand, bare feet silent on the hardwood. She slipped into the office, her silhouette framed by the light from the screen. Without hesitation, she pulled a wafer-thin device from her clutch, placed it against the monitor, and initiated the scan. On the network display, the first beacon flared. "Target acquired." Maya leaned forward, her breath fogging the glass of her cocoa mug. "She's transferring now." The data flowed in a controlled stream, wrapping itself around the butterfly watermark like silk on steel. 22 seconds later, the device chirped. Vanessa pocketed it and moved toward the door. She didn't make it. The front door opened, and Miles stepped in, shaking rain from his coat. "We're good," he asked in a low voice. Vanessa's reply was a hiss. "We need to move now." "He's getting suspicious." From the trailer, Carter watched the exchange, the audio feed carrying every word. His stomach tightened, not from surprise, but from confirmation. Miles glanced around the office, his gaze lingering on the old server tower. "This it?" Vanessa shook her head. "That's old tech. We've got what we came for." Carter stepped into the house before Reed could stop him. The click of his shoes on the floor drew both their eyes. "Didn't know I had guests," he said evenly. Vanessa's smile was quick and brittle. "Miles just dropped by." "Save it." Carter's voice cut through the room like wire under tension. "Sit down, both of you." They obeyed. There was something in his tone that bypassed argument. Reed entered a moment later, flanking them with two of his men in plain clothes. No weapons drawn, no theatrics, just presence. Carter picked up the remote from his desk and pointed it at the wall screen. The footage played in crisp clarity. Vanessa's midnight visits, Miles taking a silver case, their whispered exchanges. Then the screen split, one half showing the office camera from minutes ago, the other the network trace flaring with the Midtown Node signature. "You bugged me?" Vanessa demanded. "No," Carter said. "You bugged me. I just found your bugs before you did." Her mask cracked, just enough for him to see the panic underneath. Miles shifted in his chair, his usual boardroom charm stripped away. "You think you can make this stick?" Miles tried. "I don't think," Carter said, stepping closer. "I know." From the corner of the room, a small movement caught his eye. Maya had stepped just inside the doorway, her tablet in hand, recording everything with a steadiness that made her look far older than 9. Carter looked back at Vanessa and Miles. "The worst part? It wasn't the breach. It was that you walked into my home, smiled at my family, and thought I wouldn't notice the knife in your hand." Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Carter's reply was calm, almost gentle. "Neither do you." Reed gave the signal, and his men escorted them out into the rain. The house was still again, but the air was different now, charged, unsettled. Carter turned to Maya. "You okay?" he asked. She looked at the empty chairs where the two had sat moments before. "Are you?" He thought about it, then nodded. "I am now." On the network display, the Midtown Node still pulsed, waiting. This wasn't over, not even close, and Carter intended to be the one writing the ending. The flight to New York was silent except for the muted thrum of the Gulfstream's engines. Carter sat by the window, the city's distant lights still hours away, his mind running scenarios. Across from him, Reed scrolled through an encrypted tablet, the glow painting the hard planes of his face. Maya was curled under a blanket in the rear seat, pretending to sleep, but with one ear tuned to everything. When the wheels touched down at Teterboro, The morning sky over Manhattan was a dull, predatory gray. They didn't head to any of Hines' known offices. Instead, they drove to a warehouse district on the East River stretch of old brick facades, repurposed into startups that paid premium rent for the illusion of grit. In the middle of it, between a boutique import company and a private storage firm, was their target, Glasstec Labs, a partner facility Carter had signed off on in a spring merger. Just before Vanessa had started pushing for East Coast expansion, the lobby was sterile and bland, an unmarked receptionist desk. Walls painted the shade of oatmeal that architects choose when they want you to forget the room exists. But when Reed flashed a badge and the glass doors unlocked, the interior shifted. Sleek black server racks stood like monoliths in temperature-controlled silence. This isn't just a duplication node, Reed murmured, scanning the blinking lights. They're ghosting your mainframe in real time. Carter's stomach tightened. They're not stealing pieces of my code, they're building their own version of Hine. The sound of footsteps broke through the mechanical hum. A man in a crisp navy suit appeared at the end of the aisle. He was in his early 40s, sharp hairline, watch worth more than the average car. Mr. William, he said, tone polite, but cool. Didn't expect you this early. I'm Eric Vaughn, acting director. Acting, Carter repeated, letting the word hang, or pretending. Eric's smirk faltered. This is just a satellite office. Whatever you think. I don't think. Carter cut in. I know. We traced your payments, your shell registrations, your offshore link to an Austin relay. This place exists to dismantle everything I built. Reed stepped forward, dropping a folder onto the nearest workstation with a satisfying thud. Signed, Confession from Vanessa Lane, corroborated by 2 terabytes of server data. Enough to bury this operation before lunch. Eric's eyes flicked to the folder, then back to Carter. You're bluffing. I don't bluff, Carter said, stepping into his space. I'm the man who built a billion-dollar company by protecting what others couldn't. You took my trust, twisted it, and now you're going to watch it collapse around you. Outside, the sharp whine of tires announced the arrival of unmarked SUVs. Within seconds, federal agents were swarming in, badges flashing, their movements efficient and cold. Vaughn didn't resist when they cuffed him. His smirk was gone. From across the street, Maya stood beside a street vendor, nibbling a pretzel so oversized it nearly dwarfed her hands. When Carter crossed to her, she looked up with calm curiosity. Was that one of the bad guys? One of them, Carter said. Her brow furrowed. How many more? Enough to keep us busy. Back in Atlanta, busy arrived faster than expected. The emergency board meeting was called less than 24 hours later. The glass conference room on the 41st floor overlooked the downtown skyline. But the view felt irrelevant to clean for what was about to happen. Elliot Green, a board member with a taste for golf course alliances, cleared his throat. Carter, we'll be frank. The company's reputation has taken a hit. Investors are spooked. We need stable leadership, not someone personally entangled in scandal. Carter leaned back in his chair, his gaze cool. You want me out because I caught a criminal conspiracy in my own home. Tabitha Claymore, her voice silk over steel, joined in. It's about perception. Perception shapes value. Right now, your name triggers doubt. Is it coincidence, Carter said slowly, that the woman who sabotaged my company also pushed for policies you both profited from financially? Elliot's jaw tightened. Be careful, Carter. I'm done being careful. His voice carried across the room like a current. You pushed this meeting under emergency protocol. Then let's treat it like an emergency. I propose a full forensic audit of every board member's financial history for the last 2 years, including offshore transactions. Tabitha's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would. He nodded toward the door. Leon Barksdale entered, a thick folder under his arm. He began distributing copies. The rustle of paper loud in the tense quiet. Independent accounting review, Carter said. Chain of custody verified. Anyone who doesn't want to answer for their part can walk out now. No one moved. When the meeting adjourned, Carter didn't feel the satisfaction of a win, just the weight of a door opening onto another, darker hallway. That evening, alone in his office, he found an envelope on his desk. Heavy linen paper, sealed with dark red wax pressed into the shape of butterfly wings. He broke it open. Inside was a single sheet of cream stationery, handwriting elegant and deliberate. Hello, Carter. You're a man of vision, but even visionaries can be blind. I never meant for Vanessa to hurt you. She was only meant to extract information that Fall was hers. Let's keep this professional. There's a deal to be made. Meet me alone. Battery Park. Tomorrow. 11 a.m. Bring no one, not even the girl. No signature. Just a small, hand-drawn butterfly in the corner, wings folded. Carter read it twice, then a third time, the quiet in the office pressing in around him. Whoever Monarch was, they weren't hiding anymore. They were inviting him into the open. And an invitation like that was never about conversation. It was about control. He set the letter down, eyes narrowing. Tomorrow, someone was going to discover. He wasn't the kind of man you lured to a meeting without paying the price. If you want, I can now roll straight into part 5 so the Battery Park confrontation happens in real time. With full tension and psychological maneuvering, that's where the story pivots from shadow war into direct engagement with Monarch. The wind off the Hudson was sharp enough to sting, but Carter barely felt it. He sat alone on a weathered bench in Battery Park, coat collar turned up. Eyes on the horizon where the water merged with the pale winter sky. The air smelled of salt and diesel, and every few seconds a ghost cry cut through the quiet dot at exactly 11:01. A shadow fell across him. The man who sat down did so without hesitation, without a word. He moved like someone who had spent decades at the head of a table. No one dared to approach without invitation. Tall, silver-haired, his suit understated but cut to perfection. He carried no briefcase, no folder, nothing but the kind of confidence that came from never needing to explain yourself. You were always too idealistic, the man said finally, his voice low, almost conversational. Carter didn't turn. You've got me at a disadvantage. No, Carter, the man said with a faint, ghost-like smile. You gave that up the day you fell for Vanessa. That was your first mistake. The second was raising that girl to think truth matters more than survival. Carter's blood went cold. You know Maya. I know everything. I built this industry before you could spell algorithm. I built the trust you're so fond of tearing down. Then why try to destroy Hyan? Because you're too pure, the man said, as if stating a fact of physics. You still believe in open platforms, in ethical code, in protecting user privacy. That's bad business, and espionage is better. It's efficient. The man replied flatly, don't take it personal. Vanessa was a tool. You were in the way. Carter turned now, meeting his gaze fully. So why meet me? The man leaned back slightly, as if the bench were his boardroom. Because this doesn't have to end with headlines and federal subpoenas. Sell. Walk away. Hyan is valuable, but not irreplaceable. You walked, and I erase all traces of involvement. Maya grows up safe. You retire with dignity. The butterfly never lands again. There was the clean offer dressed in poison silk. Carter stared out across the water for a long moment. He thought of Vanessa's betrayal, of Miles's smug evasions, of the night Maya had stood in his office doorway and whispered about a camera. He thought of her drawings, the butterflies she'd hidden in the coat of the decoy sting, the way her voice had hardened when she said pain should pay rent. When he finally stood, the man stayed seated. Think carefully, the man said. Carter's voice was calm, the edges of steel hidden under velvet. You touched the wrong family. He walked away without looking back. By the time he reached Hyan's Atlanta headquarters that night, the war room was already alive. Only 6 people were there. Reed, Leon Barksdale, Ellen from compliance, 2 of Leon's field techs, and Maya, small in her oversized blazer, perched on a chair with her laptop open. We're going to leak, Carter said, his voice cutting through the low hum of equipment. Ellen blinked. To the press? No, Carter said. To them. The Monarch's network. Leon's brow lifted. Reverse bait. Exactly. We give them something they can't resist, an internal discovery of a breakthrough in predictive AI, but it's code-locked, laced with trace beacons. The moment they open it, ShadowNet maps the entire path straight back to the source. Maya's voice was steady. I can make the beacons branch so if they try to sandbox it, it'll still trace each isolated node. Carter's mouth curved into the faintest smile. Do it. The next 48 hours were a blur of precision. The decoy, this one christened butterfly stain to .0, was built in layers, each more tempting than the last. The file name suggested unreleased architecture. The documentation hinted at unfiled patents. And deep in the metadata lay the butterfly silhouette that would mark the moment of capture. Maya worked without complaint, her focus unbroken. Carter caught himself watching her sometimes, realizing she no longer looked like the quiet child who arrived at his house 6 months ago. She looked like a strategist, Someone who understood the stakes better than most adults in the room. At 3:17 a.m. on the third night, ShadowNet lit up. Red threads began to weave through the dark blue map on the main screen. They jumped across continents: Seoul, Frankfurt, Sao Paulo, before narrowing into U.S. locations. One was the Austin relay, the other pulsed in Midtown Manhattan, deep inside the fortified network of Bixler Capital. Leon leaned over the console. They're not just poking around, they're pulling it in chunks, compiling on the fly. Carter felt the moment crystallize. Let them, every second they touch it. They're tightening the noose. 3 hours later, Bixler's internal network went dark for 12 full minutes. When it came back online, ShadowNet's trace was complete. Operator IDs, access points, and a private link to a server cluster masked behind shell corporations in the Caymans. At the top of the control hierarchy was a single CODENAME. Monarch. Carter stared at it. The name was a ghost finally given shape. Maya's voice broke the silence. We have them. Not yet, Carter said. Now we make them look at us. The plan was already forming face to face. No screens, no deniability. He wanted to walk into the center of their hive and make them feel the walls close in. And when he did, the man from Battery Park would realize too late that Carter hadn't walked away from the offer. He'd walked toward the kill. The air inside Bixler Capital's 57th floor boardroom felt still. The kind of stillness that wasn't silence, but calculation. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a sunless Midtown skyline. All chrome and shadow. Carter stood alone at the far end of the massive glass table, the silver USB drive resting in front of him like a scalpel. Across from him sat 5 executives in suits tailored so precisely they could have doubled as armor. At the center was the man from Battery Park, Adrian Vale. Today his smile was thinner, his posture more guarded, but his eyes carried the same calm arrogance as the day he'd offered Carter the poison choice. You're punctual, Vale said, voice smooth enough to almost disguise the edge. I'm here to give you one last courtesy, Carter replied. Disband your network, erase everything, resign. You've got 48 hours. A low chuckle passed around the table, but Vale didn't join in. And if I don't? Carter slid a folder across the table. Inside, ShadowNet's trace maps, the butterfly sting beacon logs, operator IDs, and the Cayman server chain leading directly back to Bixler's shadow architecture. That's already in 3 lawyer safes, Carter said. One in Atlanta, one in DC, one here in New York. If I disappear, it all goes public. For the first time, Vale's jaw tightened. You think you can win a long game? I'm not playing a long game, Carter said. I'm lighting a fuse. In the high-end war room back in Atlanta, the rest of the senior team sat bathed in the cool glow of monitors. Maya was front and center, her laptop running ShadowNet Live, the visual web pulsing in dark blues and silvers. She sipped cocoa from a mug that read World's Youngest Advisor. Leon hovered over her shoulder, eyes locked on the main feed. They're trying to scrub the node, Maya said, fingers flying. But they're too late. Every purge command is triggering a secondary log on our end. One of the pings on the map flashed red, then another. The web began to collapse inward like a spider drawing in its prey. Leon's phone buzzed. It was Carter. They're flinching, Leon told him. Good. Carter's voice came through the line. Keep the pressure on. Back in the boardroom, Vale's calm finally cracked. You've forgotten something, he said. Vanessa may be out of play, but we still have assets inside Hyen. No, Carter said evenly. You had assets. You don't anymore. Almost on cue. The boardroom's sleek wall-mounted display lit up not with Bixler's internal dashboard, but with ShadowNet's interface. Red thread spun into a single blinking node. Tag Monarch. The butterfly's silhouette pulsed once, twice. Vale's voice dropped. You're making a mistake. You made it first, Carter replied. One of the other executives spoke for the first time, his voice tight. How the hell did they get into our system? Carter didn't answer. He simply reached for the USB, pocketed it, and turned for the door. By the time he stepped into the elevator, Maya's voice was in his earpiece. It's done. Their network's dark. Every relay, every off-site, gone. He exhaled slowly. Nice work, partner. Better than nice, she said, her tone brightening. We didn't just kill their network, we found something else. A backup archive. Email chains, names, dates. Carter's stride didn't falter. Secure it. Full chain of custody. 3 days later. Headlines were everywhere. Pixar Capital under federal investigation. Vale's photo was plastered on every major financial outlet. Vanessa had turned herself in, walking into a federal building alone and submitting a sworn affidavit that named not only Vale, but board members, consultants, and foreign partners. Miles Renner's plea deal followed within a week. Carter didn't attend a single hearing. He didn't need to. His victory wasn't in the spectacle, it was in the fact that the network was gone, gutted from the inside. On a clear spring morning, Carter took Maya to the botanical gardens. They wandered through a tunnel of pink blossoms until they came to a grove, where dozens of monarch butterflies clung to a sun-warmed branch. "Look," she said, holding out her hand. One of the butterflies floated down, settling on her palm as if it knew her. They migrate thousands of miles. Carter told her, even after storms, they remember where to go, even when they get lost. She asked. He smiled. Especially then. She studied the butterfly's wings. They're stronger than they look, so are you. He said. And for the first time since she'd whispered about the camera, Carter felt something he thought he'd lost forever: peace.